have your attention? We'd like to go ahead and begin today's program. Thank you all so much for joining us this afternoon. I'm Jonna Reeder-Claymire, the President and CEO of the Colorado Springs Chamber of Commerce and Economic Development Corporation. Thank you. It's always good to have Rodney as your PR agent, so thank you, Rodney. Before I get into my prepared comments, I would just like to say, and I will take full ownership, but anytime you start to introduce elected officials, you're probably going to forget someone. So I just would like to be sure that we recognize that the City Council President, Tom Strand, is with us today. Tom, if you'd stand to be recognized. Thank you, sir. And then we have several with us from the State House and Senate. Senator Larry Liston. Senator? Thank you. Senator Bob Gardner is with us today, who probably needs no introduction, sir. Thank you. And Representative Mark Snyder is with us. Mark, thank you. And we bring legislation to you this year. Please don't remember that we forgot your names. So thank you. And now on a much less light note, I've just learned that the Queen of England has just passed. Yes. So if you would please join me in a moment of silence for our partners across the pond. Thank you so much. I hope you're all enjoying your lunch, and please continue as we begin today's program. I have a special thanks, please, for the Broadmoor Hospitality crew. Would you thank all of them with me? We gave our Vice Chair Alvarez a note last night saying that we had 900 people here today. So I will correct him. As of today, we had almost 1,000 people joining us. So thank you all. We know that the mayor is a hot topic and will be a great speaker. Yes. So it is my pleasure to introduce our sponsor and a good friend to the Chamber of Commerce. Greg Cerbana and Widener Apartment Homes were kind enough to be our presenting sponsor today, and they also serve as a new Chamber and EDC Board of Governors member. Greg serves as the Vice President of Public Relations and Government Affairs for Widener Apartment Homes. Greg has been in residential property management industry for close to 28 years, and Widener Apartment Homes has been in the real estate business for close to 45 years. You know, they've made major investments in Colorado Springs region, even though they work across the country. Greg is well known in the industry and serves on a number of board of directors in the apartment industry, such as the National Apartment Association. He is a sought-after speaker on housing policy discussions all across the country. Greg oversees the philanthropic giving for Widener Apartment Homes. For example, he administers a $10 million pledge that Dean Widener made to address challenges of homelessness in Anchorage, Alaska. On a personal note, Greg was born and raised in Hawaii and considers himself an island boy that is trapped on the mainland. On the weekends, he enjoys driving the back roads of Washington State on his Harley with his beautiful bride of 30 years. And when he's not on that Harley, he is an avid fan of both the Seattle Seahawks and the Seattle Sounders. But I happen to know he's the biggest fan of the Switchbacks here at Widener Field. Join me in thanking our presenting sponsor and welcoming them to the stage, Widener Apartment Homes and Greg Cerbana.
Good morning, everyone. Boy, that Seahawks comment really got us going off on the right foot there, didn't it? I greet you all on behalf of Dean Widener and the 1,800 team members that make up the Widener family. And when Jonna offered this opportunity as a presenting sponsor for Mayor Suthers' State of the City, I was both honored and delighted to be able to stand at the podium and say thank you. Thank you to the mayor, thank you to Jeff, Green and their team for the tremendously good work that they've done over the last 7 years. And working with this mayor and his team and the staff that he's assembled to carry out the duties that he's responsible for has been a breath of fresh air compared to the other cities that Widener has a presence in. With roughly 64,000 apartments that we own in over 75 cities across the US, we do actually have a little bit of experience with working with some administrations, and I can say definitively that this has been one of the most strongest and most reciprocal partnerships we've developed in many years, based on their accessibility, their willingness to engage in new ideas, the flexibility with which they've empowered their departments, and the clear vision for responsible growth that has been laid out from the top. The right levers are being pulled to signal that Colorado Springs is open for business and embracing what is needed to encourage investment into the fabric of this community. There you go. As a member of the Board of Governors for the Chamber and EDC, both Dean Widener and I have been equally impressed with this organization's profile out in the business community. The energy and professionalism I've seen from Jonna and her team during her short but very impactful time on the job gives me great confidence in the Chamber and EDC's leadership profile in the business community. I also applaud the Chamber and EDC's public policy efforts and recent economic development wins that affect our company's ability to grow our business in the Springs. Having attended both the welcome reception and the sold-out Board of Governors luncheon last week that highlighted the experience and the perspective of Deloitte's Global Site Selection Executive, it was very enlightening for me. I found there to be a great collaboration between multiple parties and a keen eye on strategic momentum going forward. And for those who attended the luncheon, I know you agree with me that Darren's feedback was priceless to the business community here in the Springs. You all should know that Widener Apartment Homes is proud to be a partner within the City of Champions portfolio here in Olympic City, USA. Although I was unable to attend the OEDIC dinner and trade show a couple of weeks ago, I did hear about the celebratory feel of the event and the excitement with what's being accomplished over the last 9 years. But actually, I was more interested in hearing about the State Commissioner's confidence in Colorado Springs as John outlined what's next. And from what I heard, the state of Colorado loves the Springs. Several of Widener's key local partners are here with us at our tables today. If you ever wonder what our colleague and my friend Laura Newman is working on for us beyond our Widener developments here in Colorado Springs, I'll mention just a few of our key partners by name. Certainly, we are most proud of our partnership with the Reagan family and the Switchbacks FC. President Nick Reagan and Executive Vice President James Reagan are here with us today, and we couldn't be more pleased with their leadership of the team, but also throughout the community. Thank you, gentlemen. Over here to my left, I have Shelley Jensen, CEO of Working Fusion and Tiny Homes Project. You are making such an impact in the lives of young people during their transitional phase into adulthood. Your vision and courage are remarkable, and we are proud to support your efforts in the Mill Street neighborhood to provide affordable tiny houses for those young people. Thank you. Although not at our table, Jariah Walker, Executive Director of the Colorado Springs Urban Renewal Authority. Thank you, sir, for representing us on our first foray into the benefits of URA, but for educating us along the way. We look forward to sharing our very first public plaza along with our first parking garage supported by URA monies along Moreno in March of 2024. I'm going to say hello and congratulations to Cindy Aubrey, CEO of Pikes Peak United Way. Congratulations on your well-deserved accolades award last week. We're very, yes. We're so very proud to be a sponsor of your long-awaited Southeast Family Success Center opening next month. Also most appreciative of Susan Edmondson and her downtown organizations that are making such an impact. Thank you. We've got friends here from D11 who are working on with a project for the young people that can perhaps give them an opportunity and a pathway for a project and for a career that may not necessarily mean college, but will have great impact on their lives. So thank you for D11 for being here. And also I would like to acknowledge two other key partners of ours, that you'll be hearing about more in the future as we're getting ready to announce some very cool new joint projects and our friends with Norwood Development, as well as the folks over the UCCS. Look for some of those announcements coming soon. And those are just a few of the great people we've been able to come alongside with, partner with, and learn from here in the Springs. I wish I had more time to hold up more of the incredible people and the organizations that we've got an opportunity to work with, but I'm only telling you something that you already know. Colorado Springs is a great environment for business and for people, and for you to live here. In closing, I would simply like to say thank you. Thank you for welcoming us to downtown Colorado Springs in such a big and bold manner after 30 years in this community. To say that Mr. Widener is bullish on Colorado Springs would be an understatement, and that confidence is due in no small part to Colorado Springs Mayor John Suthers. So we express and extend our deepest appreciation and thanks for your leadership, along with your wife Janet, who scales her own mighty mountains to make this city so remarkable. We really wish you nothing but the best as you enter this final season and this chapter of your life, and look forward expectantly to what the future holds for you. Thank you very much, and welcome.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for attending my 8th and last State of the City speech as Mayor of Colorado Springs. My thanks to you and to all our citizens who will view this speech through various media for your continuing interest in our great city. My thanks to the Colorado Springs Chamber and EDC and its CEO, John Claymire, for once again hosting the Mayor's annual report to our citizens, and to all the member sponsors of today's event. And of course, thanks to the Broadmoor for again providing us with a great venue. Folks, in the scheme of things, 8 years is not a long time. In the course of human history, it's the blink of an eye. But in the life of a city, particularly one that's 151 years old, 8 years is sufficient time for significant change to occur. And in fact, Colorado Springs has changed a lot in the past 8 years, and I'd like to use my remarks today to talk about these changes and then make some observations about the future of our city. So I'll begin by asking you to turn back the clock to the beginning of 2015. I assume most of you, but not all, were residents of Colorado Springs at that time. The city was still emerging from the Great Recession. Job creation in Colorado Springs had been largely stagnant for a decade. According to the annual Milken Report, our city's economic performance was 98th among America's 200 largest cities and was trending downward. We were not creating enough jobs to accommodate the needs of our local high school and college graduates, and there was an exodus of young people from our city. Our critical public infrastructure had been largely neglected for many years. The city engineer estimated our public infrastructure deficit was at least $1.5 billion. 60% of our roads were in poor condition, and our stormwater system was both physically and legally deficient. In November of 2014, the voters had rejected a ballot issue to fix it, and we were facing lawsuits by the EPA, the state of Colorado, and Pueblo County. As lifelong residents of Colorado Springs, my wife Janet and I joined many others who were concerned about our city. And in a moment of what I can only describe as psychological disorientation, I decided to run for mayor. Here's the 30-second message I sent to potential voters.
I'm John Suthers, and I'm running for mayor of Colorado Springs. I served as the Attorney General for Colorado, and I've learned that leadership is doing the right thing and management is doing things right. Over the course of my career, I've excelled at both. I have the passion, experience, know-how, and leadership style to change the politics at City Hall, to invest in our public infrastructure, and to aggressively pursue job growth. I'm asking for your vote so we can get Colorado Springs moving again.
Paid for by the John Suthers for Mayor Committee.
Well, judging by, thank you. Well, judging by the mail, email, and telephone calls we currently get at the mayor's office, I think even my most severe critics will concede that we've succeeded in getting Colorado Springs moving again. Eight years ago, people complained there were no cranes, evidencing new construction in the city. Now people regularly complain there are too many cranes. 8 years ago, the common complaint was the roads weren't getting fixed. Now we get lots of complaints about all the road construction. 8 years ago, people complained that Colorado Springs wasn't attracting and retaining young people. Now I get complaints that Colorado Springs is being overrun by young people. But such are the vicissitudes of politics. Here are the facts. In the last 8 years, Colorado Springs has grown by about 50,000 people, or about 1.5% per year. That rate is actually slower than several previous periods in the city's history. With a current population of about 500,000 people, we've grown from the 42nd to the 39th largest city in the country. But while our population growth has been steady, our economic growth has been exponential. The gross domestic product of Colorado Springs metropolitan area has grown by a third over the past 8 years, from $30 to $40 billion annually. According to the annual Milken report I referenced earlier, our city's economy, 98th in 2015, is now among the top 10 municipal economies in the country, driven and that's been driven by both job growth and wage growth. We've created about 47,000 jobs since 2015. We're also among the top 10 cities in America where college graduates want to live, and we have among the fastest growing millennial population in the country. Now, how has this population and economic growth impacted our quality of life in Colorado Springs? Well, it depends upon who you talk to. Just last May, U.S. News and World Report ranked us the second best place in America to live. And in a broad survey of Americans by that same organization, Colorado Springs ranked as the most desirable city in America for the 4th consecutive year. We're in literally dozens of other top 10 rankings for places to live. Polls indicate a majority of our local residents also view the city as moving in the right direction. But it's important to acknowledge that some of our citizens, particularly those retired or not otherwise dependent on our economy for their livelihood, view the city's physical and economic growth unfavorably. But the reality is, ladies and gentlemen, you cannot create the 5,000 jobs needed annually to accommodate our graduating children and grandchildren who want to live here without growing. And the fact is, all healthy cities grow. Of the 100 largest cities in America, the only ones that did not grow over the past decade were Baltimore, Chicago, Cleveland, Detroit, Memphis, Milwaukee, and St. Louis. Colorado Springs' growth rate of 17% over the past decade was actually 23rd among the nation's 100 largest cities. So what has this most recent period of prosperity brought to our city? It has brought innovation, entrepreneurship, and significant public and private investment. With the support of our citizens, we've improved about 1,500 miles of roads and have completed or are now constructing many large road and bridge infrastructure projects. In 8 years, again with the support of our citizens, we've worked ourselves completely out of a legal quagmire and are well on our way to having the best stormwater system in Colorado. And in 8 years, we've brought the bold and ambitious City for Champions projects from conception to fruition. It took vision, persistence, and well-designed public-private partnerships to make the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Museum, Widener Field, Robeson Arena, the Hibble Sports Medicine Center, and the new Air Force Academy Visitor Center a reality. This investment will mean millions of visitors, thousands of jobs, and billions of dollars of economic activity for our city. Add to these investments a new Pikes Peak Summit Visitor Center and rebuilt COG Railway, and it's evident the future of tourism in the Pikes Peak region is very bright. Traffic at the Colorado Springs Airport has almost doubled over the last 8 years to its highest levels in 2 decades, thanks largely to our newest commercial carrier, Southwest Airlines. The city's Interquest corridor has seen $1 billion of economic development. Great Wolf Lodge, Shield Sporting Goods, Int Credit Union's corporate headquarters, and a new Centura Hospital are just a few of the investments. Polaris Point has become what I like to call a grown-up Disneyland, with golf, race car driving, indoor skydiving, a shooting range, an indoor and possibly soon to be outdoor entertainment venue, as well as many other diversions. And perhaps nothing has been so dramatically transformed over the past 8 years than downtown Colorado Springs. A great city needs a vibrant downtown core, and we've got one. The Olympic Museum, the Park Union Bridge, the Vermejo Plaza, Widener Field, Robeson Arena, 3,000 new residential units, 600 new hotel rooms, and dozens of new businesses and restaurants have made downtown the place to be for young and old alike. Our sports economy continues to grow, reaching $500 million per year. Olympic City, USA is home to the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee and its largest training center. 25 national governing bodies, the Olympic and Paralympic Museum, over 50 other sports-related organizations, and dozens of sports-related businesses. We continue to attract major sports events. As an example, next June, we'll host the U.S. Weightlifting Championship at Robeson Arena with 1,700 participants from around the country. And next July, we'll host the World Jump Rope Championship. Also, okay. You laugh. That event, the World Jump Rope Championship, is a 10-day event will involve 3,000 participants from 30 countries and 10,000 hotel nights. The military and defense industry has been and will remain the largest sector of our economy. Given the critical missions and facilities located here, that sector will continue to grow, regardless of where Space Command headquarters is permanently located. But in that regard, I'm very pleased that the ill-advised decision of the Trump administration to move U.S. Space Command from our city is being exposed as clearly contrary to our national defense interests and contrary to the interests of the American taxpayer. The Government Accountability Office found the process lacked credibility and transparency. Be assured our city will continue to wage the fight in Congress, at the White House, and in the Pentagon to retain Space Command and attract any new space-related missions that are looking for a home. Other important economic sectors in Colorado Springs are also doing well. Our healthcare industry is outstanding, bolstered by our two great hospital systems and Children's Hospital. And the Colorado Springs Health Foundation has become the philanthropic force that our citizens envisioned. The Pikes Peak region is blessed to be the home of excellent higher education institutions. The Air Force Academy produces officers who will lead the U.S. Air Force and Space Force. Colorado College is among the nation's best liberal arts colleges. UCCS continues to grow and become a huge economic force in the region, expanding programs to meet critical needs like astronautical engineering and cybersecurity. And Pikes Peak State College also plays a tremendous role in developing our workforce of tomorrow. And our city has proven itself very economically resilient, even in the face of a worldwide pandemic. The numbers are out, and they prove what we suspected. While the average large city in America suffered a 4% reduction in their economy due to the pandemic, and many much more severe, the economic loss to Colorado Springs was 0.1%. And we have recovered all the jobs lost to the pandemic faster than any other major city in America. Now, what has this period of growth and economic investment meant in terms of the municipal tax burden of our citizens? This is something I think we should be very proud of. Despite the era of prosperity and increased public investment in infrastructure we have seen, Colorado Springs residents continue to enjoy among the lowest municipal tax burdens of any city in the country. The city's per capita tax burden is just over $800. That's a third of the average tax burden of residents in the country's 100 largest cities. And it's my sincere hope that future mayors and city councils in Colorado Springs will not lose sight of the fact that you can have a very prosperous city and still have a low tax burden, and the fact that high tax burdens are ultimately hostile to a city's growth and prosperity. Another thing that is vital to a healthy city is a healthy reserve fund that will help it weather an inevitable national economic downturn and the recession we are potentially facing. I'm pleased to report that over the past 8 years, the city administration and city council have been deliberately and intentionally working to increase our city's reserves. The reserve currently stands at 24% of the city's annual general fund budget. By all accounting standards, that's a healthy situation. The only unhealthy aspect of the city budget is an unfunded pension liability, and the only entity that has the power to fix that problem is the Colorado legislature. Small tweaks to PARA by the legislature over the last several years haven't done enough to reduce the unfunded liability of PARA, and more significant reforms are necessary. Now let's turn to the future of our great city and the challenges and opportunities we can anticipate. The most essential responsibility of government is public safety. Colorado Springs has always recognized that, and it's evidenced today by the fact that 57% of the city's general fund budget is dedicated to public safety. But I believe the future challenge of having our public safety resources keep pace with our population growth and growth in geographic area will be daunting. In the past 8 years, we've added 120 police officers and 48 firefighters. But while we have 803 authorized police positions, about 64 remain unfilled. I believe we'll rectify that in 2023 by running continuous police academies. But a recent study commissioned by the city indicates that by 2035, we will likely need to increase our police force by another 200 positions. And will likely need to build 2 more police substations in Northeast and Southeast Colorado Springs. We'll also likely need to build up to 5 new fire stations and add up to 80 firefighters. We will need to do all this to ensure we maintain the reasonable response times our citizens need and deserve. By action of the City Council, we took a big step this year to help us deal with the financial realities of our public safety needs by restructuring the police and fire impact fees that we impose on new developments. Those fees will help us fund the capital costs of future growth, but future leaders must remain vigilant to maintain public safety as our highest priority. Unfortunately, we are in the midst of increasing crime in Colorado, and no amount of police resources will solve the problem unless the state legislature has a fundamental shift in priority. The heavily Democrat-controlled legislature has, over several years, been obsessed with reducing jail and prison populations. They've reduced sentences, provided for earlier release from parole or prison, made it harder to revoke parole, and easier to be released on bond. And while our prison population has been reduced 23% over the past decade, our serious crime rate has increased 42%. It's clear many of our legislators don't understand the correlation. And it's my hope the voters of Colorado will restore some common sense and philosophical balance that can deal with the crime wave we're experiencing. Staying with the topic of public safety, the Pikes Peak region's greatest natural disaster threats have historically been and continue to be wildland fires and flash flooding. Our increased investment in stormwater infrastructure over the last several years has made us much better prepared for flash flooding, but we must continue to upgrade our system. We also know there will be more wildland fires. The question is when, where, and how well prepared we will be. Last November, the voters helped us out tremendously by letting the city retain $20 million in excess revenue over the Tabor cap in order to create a permanent wildland fire mitigation fund that greatly expands our fire mitigation efforts. We are well prepared to leverage these local funds to secure significant state and federal money being made available for wildland fire mitigation. The City and Regional Office of Emergency Management are also emphasizing emergency evacuation planning. Over 600 different evacuation zones have been identified within the city. And through a campaign called COS Ready, you've got a brochure on your tables, our residents will be educated about evacuation from their particular zone. All these public safety issues will require continued vigilance. Another fundamental responsibility of municipal government is to build critical public infrastructure to keep pace with the growth of a city. And while we've made great progress over the past 8 years, it's my hope that both our city government and our citizens will not lose sight of the fact that this is an ongoing challenge. Frankly, Colorado Springs has had an historical tendency to ebb and flow in its investment in roads, bridges, stormwater, parks, and other critical public infrastructure. Although we have fairly quickly overcome a significant infrastructure deficit that took 2 decades to create, we simply cannot let up. We must continue to invest in public infrastructure, both city and utility infrastructure, to preserve our city's quality of life and ensure that the private sector also continues to invest heavily in our city. And perhaps the most important thing we can do to ensure our transportation infrastructure grows with our city is to renew the Pikes Peak Rural Transportation Authority, or PPRTA, when it comes before the voters in November. Yes. We are asking our citizens to extend PPRTA for another 10 years without raising the 0.55% sales tax paid by virtually all El Paso County residents. It's PPRTA that pays for very expensive transportation projects that expand our traffic capacities and reduce congestion. For example, among the high priority projects for PPRTA 3 will be the long overdue expansion of Mark Shuffle Road and the completion of the Powers Boulevard extension to I-25. Other ongoing challenges we face are homelessness and affordable housing. Now, as to homelessness, I have long ago reconciled myself to the fact that as long as there are any unsheltered people on our streets, many of our residents will conclude we are not appropriately dealing with the issue. But I can confidently assert, based on what I know from other cities, that you will be hard-pressed to find a large city that has dealt with the issue within the parameters of the law more effectively than Colorado Springs. Despite significant community growth, we've cut our unsheltered census by 50% in the last 5 years. We are one of very few major cities that have seen a reduction. And that's because we have an incredible group of nonprofits working with the city to address the problem. Thanks to the Springs Rescue Mission, Salvation Army, and others, we have enough shelter beds to accommodate anyone who wants shelter and wants access to health care, behavioral health care, substance abuse treatment, and employment opportunities. And we are increasing their ability to move to transitional and permanent housing. Our police and fire departments are conducting effective outreach to those who refuse shelter, and we are enforcing no camping bans and our Don't Sit, Don't Lie ordinance to the fullest extent allowed by law. I strongly believe our approach is the right one. And I strongly encourage future mayors and city councils to maintain this approach in order to avoid the disasters that have beset so many other large cities. What has transpired in Denver is a cautionary tale. In 3 years, Denver has dropped from ranking the second best place to live in the U.S. to the 55th. The reasons cited for this precipitous fall are crime, homelessness, and the pervasive presence of marijuana. And that's something Colorado Springs residents might want to consider when asked to approve 115 recreational marijuana dispensaries in the city on this November's ballot. As to the need for affordable and attainable housing in the face of rapidly rising rents and home costs, the worst thing we could do is to defy market demand and curtail building new single-family and multifamily housing. We need a broader range of housing choices for our residents, not a smaller one. As to affordable or below-market subsidized housing, we should recognize and appreciate the tremendous gains we've made over the last several years. Once again, thanks to the incredible partners in the for-profit and nonprofit sectors and the effective utilization of federal dollars by the city, we have more than doubled the output of affordable housing units in the city over the past 6 years. We should further seek to increase affordable housing by continuing and expanding these partnerships. But I would strongly discourage future city leaders from getting the city directly into the housing business itself. On a national level, such efforts have not been historically productive. Now, those of you who know me well know that I'm a limited government advocate. I strongly believe, and nothing has occurred over the last 8 years to change my view, that cities will be most successful when they focus on the essential functions of municipal government: public safety, public works, transportation, and parks, and don't seek to take on responsibilities that have heretofore been the province of federal or state government, or otherwise not a traditional responsibility of local government. I have supported and continue to support the use of lodging and rental car tax revenues to promote tourism in the Pikes Peak region. Our 2% lodging tax is among the very lowest in the country, and I would recommend seeking voter approval to raise it to 4% and use some of the additional revenue to fund maintenance of tourist-burdened parks like the Garden of the Gods or North Cheyenne Canyon, and the promotion of arts and cultural events that attract visitors to the region. And here's yet another challenge for our city residents. As a city grows, you have to work harder to keep it clean. That's why we initiated the Keep It Clean COS campaign last spring. The city is expending a one-time amount of $2 million for new equipment to combat litter and clean up streets and medians, and an ongoing $800,000 per year for additional contracted manpower to help keep our city beautiful. We're also increasing the resources of our forestry division to better maintain our city's very large tree canopy. Every one of us needs to get involved in our Keep It Clean efforts. Individuals, neighborhoods, businesses, and nonprofits. If we all make sure our own space is clean, we'll have a much cleaner city. Now, I'm often asked what things that will not be completed before I leave office am I most looking forward to seeing completed in the years ahead. And there are a number of visionary projects I hope to live to see come to fruition. I'll mention just a few. One such project involves the Fountain Creek watershed from Fillmore to South Nevada. Through the investment of Lyda Hill Philanthropies and the input of many stakeholders and consultants, we're developing a visionary plan as to what that corridor can look like after the closure of the Drake Power Plant, the relocation of the city and utilities fleet complex on Fontenero, and other public and private investments. Turning the Fountain Creek watershed into a popular recreational amenity will result in an even greater transformation of downtown Colorado Springs. There are several park projects I am very much looking forward to seeing completed. They include the development of Coleman Park on the city's east side, the reclamation of Pikeview Quarry and its transformation into a world-class bike park, and the opening of the Jimmy Camp Creek and Corral Bluffs open space in a way that preserves archaeological and anthropological treasures and still allows for recreational use. Corral Bluffs is one of the most significant archaeological sites in the world today, revealing the transition from the great dinosaurs to mammals and how life as we know it began. We owe it to future generations to develop it as thoughtfully as possible. As to our parks, I continue to believe that our Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Services Department would benefit from additional dedicated, non-general fund investment for maintenance of our existing parks and new park development. At the very minimum, we must renew the Trails and Open Space or TOPS tax before it expires in 2025. And if that is not accomplished next April, it needs to be a high priority of the next administration and council. Another project I look forward to seeing completed over the next few years is a much-needed new downtown transit center. The project is in the design stage, and its completion, estimated to be in 2027, is essential to the future transportation needs of our city. I believe it will also be fascinating to watch Southwest downtown in the Park Union District blossom over the next decade. I have 7 to 9 months remaining in my term as mayor, depending upon whether there is a runoff election to determine my successor. Be assured, I will be working every day and night during that time to finish what I've begun and to prepare the city to meet the challenges of the future. And I will not be distracted by all the political rhetoric the mayor's race will inevitably generate. But given that this is my final State of the City address, it must contain a lot of thank yous. Unfortunately, to do that right and properly convey my gratitude to everyone who helped our city move forward over the past 8 years would require a speech of insufferable length. Or should I say more insufferable length? So I must reconcile myself to the fact that my attempt, though well-intentioned, will be inadequate. I will begin by expressing my heartfelt appreciation to the 18 people who have served on City Council since April of 2015. Together, I believe we have shown our citizens that a strong mayor and a City Council can work together to accomplish tremendous things for our city. I hope that what we've done to make the budget process, the confirmation process, and general conversation between the executive and legislative branches much more constructive and effective will be replicated in the future. A particular shout out to the current City Council. President Tom Strand, President Pro Tem Randy Helms, Bill Murray, Yolanda Avila, Wayne Williams, Mike O'Malley, Nancy Hingham, Dave Donaldson, and Stephanie Fortune. Would the council members who are present please stand and let us acknowledge their great work. My thanks also to the judicial branch of city government. Our municipal court, which consists of 10 part-time judges under the leadership of Chief Judge and Court Administrator Hayden Kane, has been a highly professional group that has rendered great public service to our city. Yeah, give them a hand. I am deeply indebted to the outstanding city staff I've had the privilege to work with as mayor. Throughout my entire tenure, I have benefited from the wisdom, political savvy, and work ethic of my Chief of Staff, Jeff Green. Jeff is a consummate professional and has done a great job. Jeff, stand up and take a bow. I do, however, blame Jeff for the fact that I have not vetoed a single ordinance passed by the City Council over the last 8 years. His communication with the council was so effective that council ideas I was inclined to veto never got to my desk. Frankly, I've been itching to veto something. But there's still time. Our city department heads have been a stellar group of managers and visionaries. No less than 7 department heads have been headed by the same person throughout my tenure. They include City Attorney Wynetta Massey, City Planning Director Peter Wysocki, Public Works Director Travis Easton, Human Resources Director Mike Sullivan, Economic Development Director Bob Cope, City Clerk Sarah Johnson, and Chief Judge Hayden Kane. Other current department heads that are with us today include our Fire Chief, Randy Royal, our Police Chief, Adrian Vasquez. Also present is Deputy Chief of Staff, Ryan Trujillo, and of course, our CEO of COS Springs Utilities, Aram Benjamin. Let's give them a hand. The mayor's office staff has made it fun to go to work every day. Every day is another day in paradise, as we like to say in the mayor's office. My thanks to Julie Lafitte, Lori Landers, Gwendolyn Gadati, Katie Lally, Maddie Gullickson, Don Conley, and Jesse Kimber for a job very well done. The fact is, the City of Colorado Springs and Colorado Springs Utilities have tremendously dedicated and effective employees. It has been a great joy to work with so many outstanding public servants. Would all the city and utilities employees who are present today please stand so we can acknowledge you. Our city could not have been as successful as it's been over the past 8 years without our partnerships with other regional governments and nonprofits. While I can't name them all, I must mention El Paso County, the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments, PPRTA, the El Paso County Health Department, Silver Key, the Chamber and EDC, Downtown Partnership, Kono, the Colorado Springs Urban Renewal Authority, the Colorado Springs Health Foundation, the El Pomar Foundation, the Colorado Springs Sports Corp, Pikes Peak Home Builders Association, Pikes Peak Realtors Association, Visit COS, the Trails and Open Space Coalition, the Trust for Public Land, the Palmer Land Trust, Homefront Military Network, Mount Carmel, the Colorado Springs Housing Authority, and all our nonprofit shelter, housing, and social service providers, including the Springs Rescue Mission, Salvation Army, Catholic Charities, Greshio Housing, Homeward Pikes Peak. Woo, you get the picture? I really can't name them all, but so many government and nonprofit partners help make our city a great place to live. On a personal level, I attribute success and political survival I've enjoyed to the unwavering support of my family. I've had a lot of stressful jobs and a well-ordered personal life has helped me through the tribulations of extended public service. I met my wife, Janet, on a blind date 47 years ago. I like to say she's the one that was blind. She took a chance on me, and through 46 years of marriage, she's given me the love and support that has made me a better person and a better ancestor than I ever could have been without her. And over the last 8 years, she has quietly and effectively embraced her role as the city's First Lady. She has raised almost $1 million to promote our city as Olympic City, USA, and make park and rec sports available to all our children, regardless of economic circumstances. And folks, be assured that the only person in Colorado Springs that has eaten more rubber chicken than Janet over the last 8 years is me. We are both rubber chicken connoisseurs, and by the way, we rate the Broadmoors the highest you can get. Thank you, Janet, for all you've done for me and the city of Colorado Springs. And Janet and I are delighted that our oldest daughter, Allison, was able to join us at our table today. Thank you, Allison, for being here. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not sure if you've noticed, but I'm not a very flamboyant guy. But I believe I've led an interesting life. I was born out of wedlock, adopted when I was an infant, and lost my adopted parents at a young age. That trauma caused me to make it my life goal to lead a meaningful and consequential life. My legal career has taken me from the local courthouse to the United States Supreme Court. I achieved what some lawyers refer to as the legal trifecta, serving as district attorney, U.S. attorney, and state attorney general. And thanks to the citizens of Colorado Springs, I've had the profound honor and privilege of serving as mayor of my hometown, an ascendant American city at a time of unprecedented prosperity, overcoming challenges like domestic terrorism, civil unrest, and a worldwide pandemic. And I'm so glad I did. Well, it's been a difficult job. It's been extremely satisfying. In this time of highly partisan politics that has rendered federal and state governments largely incapable of resolving critical issues, I believe municipal government is where problems are being addressed and people's quality of life is being enhanced. When I walk out of the mayor's office for the last time next spring, I will have been in public life for 35 years. That's a long time to be in the arena. It's not been easy for me or my family, but it has been incredibly rewarding. And I'm so grateful to be able to say that thanks to my family, to the people of Colorado Springs, and the state of Colorado, I've been able to live the life I intended to lead. And that makes me a very lucky man. Citizens of Colorado Springs, the state of our city is excellent. It is widely recognized as among the very best cities in America. And our future is bright if we choose capable leadership going forward. I have every confidence that future generations of Colorado Springs residents will understand and appreciate how unique our city is. It is one of very few large American cities founded on the basis of aesthetics, its proximity to the natural beauty that surrounds it, rather than economic practicality. We must never lose sight of the vision of its founder, General William Palmer, that Colorado Springs be an uncommon place where uncommon people enjoy the common pleasure of living, working, and playing. And we must never shrink from the challenge that faces every generation of Colorado Springs residents to continue to build a city that matches our scenery, a shining city at the foot of a great mountain. Thank you, may God bless you, and may God continue to bless the city of Colorado Springs. Thank you all. Ladies and gentlemen, each year at this event, it's my honor and pleasure to present the Spirit of the Springs Lifetime Achievement Award. I've had the pleasure of recognizing remarkable individuals during my time as mayor. They include former Parks Director Nancy Lewis, Harry Hof, a former mayor and local media pioneer, George Fellows, who served as our city manager for 2 decades, former city council member and community advocate Mary Ellen McNally, public servant and business leader Chuck Murphy, former city council member and community philanthropist Kathy Liu, Bill Hibble, longtime leader of the El Pomar Foundation, and former Colorado Springs Mayor Mary Lou Makepeace. Today, I am so pleased to add an incredibly deserving name to this impressive list, Lyda Hill. Let me share, yes. Let me share another list with you. Garden of the Gods, Seven Falls, Cheyenne Mountain Zoo, Pikes Peak Summit Visitor Center, Colorado Springs Pioneers Museum, UCCS. These are just a few of the local places impacted by Lyda's generosity. And that's just here in Colorado Springs. Lyda Hill Philanthropies is an organization investing in major catalytic initiatives which are changing lives all over the world. She brings her entrepreneurial spirit to projects, creating meaningful and lasting impacts. Just last month, she was named the recipient of the prestigious Carnegie Medal of Philanthropy. And today, the city of Colorado Springs joins the effort to recognize her exceptional example of giving and advocacy with our Spirit of the Springs Lifetime Achievement Award. Folks, it would take me a very long time to fully describe her impact on our community, but we want to share a few highlights. Please turn your attention to the screens and join me in watching this video tribute.
It's a view that never gets old. And just across the street from Garden of the Gods, you'll find a reason that the park has remained so beautiful and popular.
The gift of that visitor center is far more than the bricks and mortar.
Inside the Garden of the Gods Visitor and Nature Center, people explore the park's history, buy souvenirs and snacks, and take photos. The money they spend goes toward maintenance and care of the park, and it all started with a woman named Lyda Hill.
She was out hiking in the Garden of the Gods one day and noticed the terrible shape the trails were in and the maintenance that needed to be done. So she called Nancy Lewis, who was the parks director at the time, and said, "What are you going to do about this?" And Nancy said, "I'm doing the best I can with the money that I have." And so Lyda put on her entrepreneur hat and suggested to Nancy that she build a visitor and nature center outside of the park, and that the proceeds from the center would go to the city to help maintain the Garden of the Gods park.
So much of what we enjoy about the park, the well-developed trails, the parking areas, the ways that we enjoy Garden of the Gods today are a result of the funds generated through that vision.
In the 27 years since the Visitor Center has been open, we have actually donated over $5.3 million to the city of Colorado Springs for maintenance of the Garden of the Gods park.
Lyda Hill was born in Texas, but luckily for us, she has spent every summer of her life in Colorado Springs.
Lyda is the daughter of Al and Margaret Hill, and they were Texas oil money. Her mother is the daughter of H.L. Hunt, who founded Hunt Petroleum, and when he passed away was one of the richest men in the country. And like so many Texans, Al and Margaret fell in love with Colorado Springs. Eventually ended up buying property. One of those is Seven Falls, and so the family owned Seven Falls, and Lyda tells great stories about working there.
She has pledged to give the entirety of her wealth to charity, and she hopes to do the bulk of it during her lifetime. Fortunately for all of us who live in Colorado Springs, we are part of that plan.
Lyda has been the force behind so much positive change, so many projects and familiar places, but most Colorado Springs residents probably don't know her name.
Most of her gifts over her lifetime have been anonymous. A good example is during COVID. Without even being asked, she made generous donations to many of our local nonprofits with no strings attached, no expectations for them to use the money so they could continue to provide services to our community during that time.
She cares deeply about land and water, and she made an incredible investment in one of our projects focusing on water conservation throughout our region.
She began several years ago with funding the Veterans Trauma, Health, and Hazards. Then, looking at the work that has been done and the national reputation of that work, she said, we're going to do more. So she funded what has become the Lyda Hill Institute for Human Resilience.
Right now, Lyda is helping to fund a visioning process for Fountain Creek and Monument Creek, and how this main waterway that flows right through downtown Colorado Springs, how it could be brought back to life and be an economic generator for downtown Colorado Springs.
That project is not just about making improvements to the creek, but it's about elevating our community as a whole.
And then there's the impact Lyda has made on those who work with her, know her well, and respect her.
She is intelligent, she's athletic, she's kind, she's loyal, she's a true friend, and most of all, there is no one who has a higher standard of integrity than Lyda Hill.
I have this great photo of her trying to capture on her phone a photo of a rock or a plant, and kind of straining to get just the right image that she wanted to capture. And that, in my mind, kind of encapsulates who she is. Just curious, wanting to understand and to picture visually, but also intellectually, the meaning of the natural world around her.
I actually have Lyda quotes on my desk, no joke. And one of my favorites that she shared with me is, if nobody pushes back, it's probably not worth doing.
What is definitely worthwhile is recognizing Lyda Hill with the Mayor's Spirit of the Springs Lifetime Achievement Award.
She always says, my privilege is to make the world a better place.
The impact is beyond measure.
It is so easy and so important to say thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Lyda Hill.
Oh my gosh, what an honor. Thank you, Mayor, for your introduction and those generous friends in the video. I owe all of you a dinner. It's certainly an honor to stand in the footsteps of the previous winners, especially Nancy Lewis, who I met and negotiated with when I wanted to build the Garden of the Gods Visitor Center. We became good friends, and she was my partner in creating the Garden of the Gods Visitor Center. She always said she out-negotiated me. And certainly the city has benefited, as you've heard, from the Garden of the Gods Foundation grants of, over the last 27 years, for the maintenance of the park, $5.3 million. It never occurred to me that that would happen. I'm a businesswoman, but that's one of my best ROIs ever. I'm also following in the path of my father. In June of 1951, when he was opening the Garden of the Gods Club, he had the Junior League of Dallas, Junior League of Colorado Springs, sorry. I was president of the Junior League of Dallas, so I think of them. The Junior League of Colorado Springs be the beneficiary of tours, and they sold tours of what the new building for 50 cents a ticket. And apparently they made a whole lot of money. Times change, right? Way back, Dad had yearly had admissions after he put the lights on Seven Falls, and the Christmas lights especially drew many of you when you were children, maybe. He gave it free tours to the falls for the first, when it first opened with the lights. I can't remember how many days it was, but he had the children's volunteer agency having canisters at the gate, taking up money, and it later became Christmas Unlimited, which I think has done wonderful things for the community. In 1980, Dad gave a 100-year-old bridge and 50 acres around it to the city via the Palmer Foundation and helped create the Palmer Foundation's work. It was part of the old Stagecoach Road to Denver, which so if you haven't seen it across from Glen Erie entrance, you definitely want to go check it out again. There's a sort of little pull-out there. It's great fun for me to follow in my father's example and to use my entrepreneurial skills to better Colorado. I'm excited about the maintenance work for the Garden of the Gods that we do yearly, about the resilience platform at UCCS, and about the Cause Creek plan, which you got to see some neat pictures of. It's coming. It's going to take a long time, but it's coming. And I can't wait to see what comes next. I really always look forward to the future. Thank you very much for honoring my past.
Thank you all for joining us today. Mayor Suthers, I know I speak for the entire audience when I say that we cannot thank you enough for your resiliency and your dedication to our city. We are so honored for what you've done, and we're going to keep you working hard until spring of next year. So, the mayor is the only person I know that can make roads, bridges, and stormwater mitigation exciting. So, I have fun with him every day. And congratulations, Lyda Hill. I say quite often that so many of us stand on the shoulders of giants that have done great work before us. And ma'am, we stand on your shoulders that you have made this your adopted summer home. And thank you for giving us a reason to all love Olympic City, USA. Thank you, ma'am. Again, I have to say thank you to our sponsors. Today's event would not be possible without you. We know these are your hard-earned dollars, and I hope you know your chamber and EDC are using them wisely. If you've enjoyed today's State of the City, I invite you to join our other upcoming community events with the Chamber and EDC. On September 27th, we'll be hosting the state's debates for the Pikes Peak region, two of the most competitive state legislative races, the House District 18 and Senate District 11 at the City Auditorium. This is free and open to the public, and we hope that you will exercise our democratic rights and be there. On October 29th, we will be back here at the Broadmoor for the Chamber and EDC's annual gala. Now, things are going to be a little bit different this year, folks. We are going to be doubling down on the 719, and because it is Halloween weekend, we're going to have more fun than business. So I hope, gentlemen, you'll grab that James Bond dinner jacket, you'll think Casino Royale, and join us for some fun. And we always want to also take care of our partners. So while you'll have fun gambling, we'll donate all those proceeds to some of our strategic workforce development partners. So get your ticket for October 29th. And November the 10th is our State of the Region with Commission Chairman Stan Vanderwerf. So mark your calendars now. You can find all this information on these events and many others at cscedc.com. If you're interested in sponsorships, I know, I'm a chamber person, always sponsorships, contact any member of our staff and they will get you in touch with Allison King, who's the lead on our events and special projects. Now, before you go, we have one final surprise. Thank you to our sponsor and travel partner in Southwest Airlines. 5 lucky winners have a certificate under your chair for 2 round-trip airfare tickets. Now, do not take off the tags from the seats. Jack Damali and the Broadmoor will be mad at me, but there are 5 of you that have 2 free tickets, and I am available for your +1. With that being said, thank you all for joining us today. Have a safe trip home, and thank you to our mayor for the State of the City.